Right, onto the elbow. Now, let's move that out of the way so it looks more familiar. Here we go. There's a shoulder, here's the elbow. Now, to get this off, we have to be very careful because of the spring and cog mechanism inside the shoulder here, which allows the joint to ratchet like that. As you undo this, the spring will want to pop off. So what we do is we hold the two halves together once we undo these screws here. These are very, very small screws. These are what the small jeweler screwdrivers will come in handy for. And these ones are super ultra soft, so be very careful not to strip the head. For some reason they used very weak screws on these toys. So there's those two small ones done. The middle one is quite a small screw as well. Probably have to use a slightly bigger screwdriver for that one. Now, this is the one you have to be careful with. So to undo this, we take our screwdriver, we hold both halves together and undo it very carefully. Holding the two halves together, pinch it together with your fingers. Keep the screw somewhere safe. Right. Now, you have to take this apart very carefully because it wants the spring open and you don't want the spring getting lost because that's your joint screwed then. So we just gently let the two pieces pry themselves apart. If it won't pry itself apart, then gently persuade it. Take the back section off. Let the front section fall into our hands. And there's the spring and the cog mechanism all contained nicely within. So you can now, if you want, take all that out, put it in a little box somewhere to keep it safe, or you can do this. Put the two halves back together again. Pinch it together so it stays in one piece. And put your screws back. Once the screw is lined up with the hole. There we go. Use a slightly bigger screwdriver for that. That way, your springs and your cog mechanisms are all contained within and they won't get lost. And while you're at it, put the other screws back. It's just easier this way in my opinion. Saves archiving everything, writing down notes where to put all the screws, where they came from. You save yourself a lot of time and hassle just by putting them back on the toy once you take it apart. There's nothing wrong with doing this. Just keeps things nice and simple. There's no need to overcomplicate something that doesn't need to be complicated. That's what I always say. If I can get this one back in, it's being quite stubborn. Why are you going in then, you little sod? That one's in. Here we go. And there, it's all safe and sound. Nothing's going to get lost now. We'll come back to these pieces later as I have to take these air filters off and I have to take the doors off of the shoulders, which are attached by a pin there. Put those in our parts bin for now. Here it is the elbow section. This doesn't need to be disassembled anymore. It contains another spring and cog mechanism inside which allows the joint to ratchet like that. You can take this apart if you want, but it's unnecessary to do so really. Just remember when you paint it to get in there and in there. And to do that you just twist the joint, just move the joint. It's easy, simple. So put that in our parts box. Now, I'm going to take off the cab chest windows section which attached to the body of the toy. These little hinges here. No pins, no screws or anything, just twist it in a clockwise rotation and it'll pop off very easy. Again, it's held on with these plastic little nubs here. If you have trouble getting it off, don't force it, don't use all your strength, otherwise you'll either break that joint, that section there, or you'll break the thing off completely. But you shouldn't have much trouble getting it off because that's actually quite soft plastic, so it should be easy for everyone. And now we're going to take the thumb visor off, which is held on with a ball joint. Very simple. Again, don't be too rough with it, be careful. It should come off with very minimum effort. And because this is a tiny piece, we are going to put this in our tiny bits box, like that. Now, this cab section here, this is it. You don't take this apart anymore. You can if you want, but it's very complicated. There's loads of springs, loads of cogs in there. It's not worth taking apart. When you go to paint it, just mask up, just be careful, and otherwise you risk breaking this clear, thin, brittle plastic, taking it all apart. Then you got to remember how all the mech tech gears go back, how all the springs go back and everything like that. So it's not worth taking it apart, just leave it like that. That'll go in our parts box. Now, let's take off the head. Very simple here. Head's attached with this neck piece with one screw on the back. Unscrew it. Take the screw out, keep it safe. And then the head will split into two parts, like that. Now, inside the head you have some optics. To get those out, just take a flathead small screwdriver, place it on the bottom there and push it out. There you go. Now the optics come out, and now you can paint those whatever colour you want. It's easier to get to them than it is to leave them in there. So take those out, and because these are small, again, put it in your little parts bin, parts box. Now we take the head, join the two halves back together, and screw it up nice and tight so we don't lose the screw. There, done. Put that away. Right, that's the upper chest section of this toy. This doesn't come apart anymore. You have to leave this neck section on here. You have to leave the shoulders on here. You can't take these off anymore. These bits can come off if you want. They're only held on with a pin, but it's unnecessary to take them off for this repaint. If you paint here, the paint is going to chip. It's going to be fine. So there's no point taking them off really. But that section has to stay in one big piece. That cannot be taken apart anymore. I have tried, and it's too complicated and not worth the effort really. And you'll just probably end up breaking bits by trying to take it apart, and it's not necessary. You want to keep it all intact. Right, so that's that done. Now let's get on to the legs. The legs are held on with a few different screws. Right, the main components. Right, to take the hip armour, let me check the time. Yeah, to take the hip armour pieces off, very simple. There's one screw on the back there. Take your large screwdriver and unscrew it. Oh yeah, another good tip is to buy screwdrivers with magnetic tips on the end, because once you unscrew a screw, it'll stick to the end of your screwdriver instead of falling out and dropping on the floor. Right, now the hip armour section will now come off, and it just slides out like that. Very simple. Now you put the screw back in its place so it doesn't get lost. It's quite a large piece, so you can put that in with your other bits and pieces. Right, now, to get the leg off, you have to undo the screw at the knee there, and there are two hard to get to screws behind this wheel, which if you take this wheel off, they're much easier to get to obviously, but I'm not going to cover that yet. I'm going to cover that in a later video on how to take apart, how to heat up pins, take them off so you can take the wheels off. So if you have a skinny enough screwdriver though, you can get to these screws behind the wheel. It's a bit tricky, but you can do it, and that will allow you to take the leg apart without taking the wheel off. Let the screws fall out, keep track of them. Coming out, so we'll keep those in there for now. Put that there. Right, now, like the shoulder joint before it, This knee has a spring and cog mechanism inside it, and it wants to pry itself apart as soon as you undo this screw. So like before, hold the two pieces together with your hand and do it that way. Actually didn't undo that enough. Come on. Nice. There's always one stubborn screw that doesn't want to come off. Okay, there we go. Keep that safe. Now the two pieces want to pry themselves apart, so pinch them together with your hand. Now gently allow, or pry them apart with your nail. Stick your nail in between the joins there, and pry the two sections apart. Very slowly, very carefully. You don't want the spring popping out and getting lost. And there you go. You take the one section off. This now exposes the knee joint, which can come off. And then you can take the rest of the thigh section off the leg entirely. That's what you don't want to happen. Okay? Lucky there that didn't go flying. Right, to keep everything safe again, join the two halves together. Oop. Join the two halves together, he says. There we are. And screw them back into place. Now a few stubborn screws behind the wheel. Be very careful not to strip the heads. And that's the leg section all contained and safe with the knee joint inside. So remember how it all comes apart for when you put it back together, but it's all there already, so hopefully you won't lose any of the bits. Right, now the hip joint again comes to pieces, two parts, and like before it wants to pry itself apart because there's a spring and cog mechanism inside. These ones you can't actually put back together though, because the piece that holds them together was the hip armour section, which we've already taken off. So to keep these cogs and springs safe, put them in one of your small parts boxes, which contains the other side for this project. Keep them nice and safe, you know what they're for. And then these bits can go in one of your parts boxes for later. Here's the lower section of the leg. This cannot be disassembled any further than it already has. You can take this piece off here, it's held on with a pin there, but it's completely unnecessary to do so. You can't take the knee armour off, you can't take the inner shin section armour off, you can't take this bit off at the back. I have tried, there's three screws here, but if you undo them nothing happens, you can't pull the pieces apart. There's something to do with that springy mechanism in there and this, but I found that for painting you can work around this just by masking up, so this doesn't have to be disassembled any further, not that it can anyway. So put that in your parts box.